And they came to me and they said, we can pay for half of the month's rent to be able to keep our church open. A church like this. I mean, it's not as pretty and it's not as nice, but a church, filled full of people. And they said, we can pay half the rent, but not all of it. And I said, well, what is the amount that you need in order to keep this church going? And they said, well, we can pay half, but not all of it. And I go, well, how much? And they go, well, it's $150 a month. And my immediate reaction was, oh my gosh, God, you mean I can save an entire church for $150 a month? And they go, I remember they go, no, not $150, that's the total amount. We just need $75 a month for you to save this church. And I could still feel the Spirit of God. The idea that He would pick me to be able to save a church for $75. It's an incredible experience. And it changed me. I came back home, and the process, the act of being able to give and matter, it filled that spot. And I tell you, I couldn't have wanted more than anything. All I could do is talk about visions and prayers and how could I find other ways to give. There was thousands of children and teenagers that were hopeless. How can I find ways to be able to do this more? I'm going to tell you, I went to my church. And that's when all of a sudden doors started slamming, actually. I went to the church and I just heard, this isn't one of our recognizable ministries. We can't help with something like that. I went to the people I know in the church. And that's when I started to hear the messages, Dean, this just isn't the kind of thing that you can do. This isn't the kind of thing that you're ready for, or the kind of thing that you're prepared for. This is the kind of thing that is for people with advanced theological degrees that know how to have things right. And I don't want to in any way say that I have anything against those people. My gosh, they blessed me in so many ways. And they are so important to the kingdom. But this ministry is about sometimes those people that don't have those degrees. They're in a spot where they need a little bit more encouragement. But I was told at that time, not only wasn't I prepared, but I was told at that time I wasn't good enough. I was reminded that I was divorced and that I was out of work. Somebody reminded me and told me right straight to my face, well, one of the problems is that you still drink beer. I was told by another person that I'm single and I date too many women. Somebody else even told me that part of the problem was that I danced and I didn't do it very well. Things that didn't really make sense, but I struggled. I really struggled with believing some of those messages. I really did. There's been times in my life where I wondered if I'm good enough, and that was part of it. But then I had to go back and think about a whole country, a whole church, who had grown up with a lifetime of messages that they weren't good enough. And that somebody has to reach out to be able to be there for them. And I found that strength to be able to not give up. And an amazing thing happened. And I want you to know that through my life, there could not be a more outspoken proponent against prosperity theology. I do not believe that there is any possible way that you can make God or manipulate God into making you rich. In fact, it's my own personal belief, and I don't know what yours is, so I hope I'm not offending anybody, but it's my own personal belief that I don't think God even cares that much about whether or not I'm rich. But it is interesting, God does have a sense of humor in my life, and He likes to teach me. And it seems like any time I decide to put God in a box and say He doesn't care about something, or He doesn't care about prosperity, He does have a way of blowing up the little boxes that I put Him in so He can let me know that He's much bigger than who I am. And what I mean by all of that is all of a sudden, because I wasn't working and I had a lot of time, I had an opportunity to write some proposals to the counties in the state. And I found a population, I'm a psychologist, I found a population that nobody wanted to treat. They felt they were too dirty and too yucky, and no one wanted to have anything to do with them. And I found that population, and I said, you know what? I will help that population. And all of a sudden, because nobody else wanted them, I got that contract. But then one of the things that happened was another county, actually that was the first largest county in Minnesota, then the third largest county in Minnesota decided that they wanted a contract with me too. And then we had so many clients that we couldn't get them to the clinics, and we had to start opening up transportation companies to be able to bring the clients to do the work. And all of a sudden, there was blessing upon blessing. But I want you to know in the middle of that, I actually can say, I never had the desire in my heart for money. I had the desire to be able to give more. And through the work and through this ministry, I was able to come together with Pastor Jerome and with Brendan and with others, and we were able to find out ways to help, because all of a sudden there was children to feed and we had money, but we didn't have the hands to do it. And Pastor Jerome said, well, I could ask the youth and teenagers if they'll come and help feed the children in the morning. And he got 12 volunteers, an interesting number that said, we don't want anything in return. And if we have to get up at 4 in the morning to cook the cereal in the morning so the children will have it, we'll feed them before they go to school. And they did that for a long time before we said, we can make a commitment to their college education. And that was close to 10 years ago, and I want you to know Jerome was one of those. Jerome P., our keyboardist, was one of the original students that made that decision, and he wanted to feed those children. And he was able to go to, was it 3 or 4 years to the music university? Okay. And so we were able to, and now I have a hard time, after all that, I have a hard time saying this next part, because I so don't ever want it to sound like in some way that we're bragging about things that we do. That's not the message here today. The message here today is how God took people that everybody else said were too screwed up and too messed up, that didn't have the training, about how God was able to use people that weren't that great and special. That he was able to do things. And now, this year, we were able to open up the second church in Durban. We've been able to have the School of Ministry Studies. We've been able to send a second dozen individuals to go to college. We've been able to help feed thousands of people. And I'm going to be able to look back from heaven. I am. I'm going to be able to look back from heaven and know that because of the work that God allowed me to do, thousands of people were able to hear that they were good enough for the love of God. And in fact, maybe in some special ways, Jesus died especially for all the people that were told that they weren't good enough for him. So having said that today, I want to introduce you to my pastor. And I'd like him to be able to tell you a little bit about who does God pick when he has a mission. And with that, I'd like to introduce Pastor Trent.